Intro. We got Rob today. So what we're going to be doing today is I've been trying to get people to do deck techs on theirs, and Rob was so kind as to offer up his Yarek deck. So that will be the topic of today's episode. We are here tonight at 11:30 at our local game store, Black Gold, soon to be Mythic Games.
Mythic Games, yes.
Mythic Games, yeah, it's gonna be cool. Yeah, so if you're ever in Littleton, or you guys have a TCG thing too, right?
We do.
Yep.
It's Black Gold on TCG Player. We have a Facebook page that's called Black Gold Magic. Just come on there. You can check me out. I've got admin on there, so if you want to talk directly to me about any questions about this deck, feel free.
You have a TCG as well, don't you?
I do. I have my own personal one. It's called Gingersnap Games. Yes, Gingersnap Games.
Yeah, it
is. Yeah, just come on there and buy some stuff from me, and I'll be able to build some more cool decks like this.
Awesome. All right, so on this week's episode of Pub Stomper Games, Pumped Up Gaming. I got those mixed up after this last week. Yeah, so we're gonna break up. I would say this is a optimized deck.
Not especially. It's something I'm trying out. So I ran through a couple games today, and I can see some changes I want to make. But as of right now, it runs fairly smooth.
Yeah, it runs quite smooth. That's why I would say. I mean, it's definitely above jank homebrew. Absolutely.
I could see changing about 10 cards in here, and it would feel pretty tight.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. You always know when you're getting really close to it being a good deck when you got to start really sitting there and debating with yourself on if this is really worth swapping out for another.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So what drew you to Mr. Yarek or Mr. I mean, how do you define what the hell that thing is?
It's it.
It's an it.
It's an it.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, gender neutral is it, right?
Pretty much. Basically, my last deck was Niv Mizzet Perrin. They banned Paradox Engine, and I really didn't want to go through it and have to figure out another win condition for that deck, so I just decided I want to build something fun. I like playing value cards, and Yarok, you get double value.
So
it's a deck that this is my play style in a nutshell. Just solid mid-range combo, and just does everything you need it to do.
Yeah, and I noticed earlier when we played that it's just a I'm playing Magic deck. There wasn't any like I'm gonna cast one spell and then pass turn. It was like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna draw, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and those are always really fun deck builds when you can just sit there and actually play Magic.
Yeah. So much going on in the deck that it's honestly it's very, very hard to remember everything. When we were playing over there, I missed so many triggers.
That's because there were a million on the board.
But that's how I like playing, so I try to keep all that stuff in my brain, and sometimes a little bit leaks out, so that's all right. All right, so this is Yarok the Desecrated. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent I control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. All right, so to go over some basic things, first we're going to start off with our 2-drops. We got card draw, we've got mana ramp, and basically just gets your deck's velocity going very early in the game.
That value.
Yeah, so it's basically card draw and mana ramp. Our 3-drop slot is where things start to get interesting. We've got several mana ramp cards here. A bunch of the druids, which are sweet. Courser of Krufix is kind of pseudo card draw. The deck has a small elemental tribal theme to it, so finding Risen Reef was actually amazing for this deck. The commander is an elemental. A bunch of the cards you're going to see later are elementals. So we also have some versatility here with Reclamation Sage. We've got Wayward Swordtooth to ramp us even faster. And we come across our first win condition, which is Laboratory Maniac. You'll be seeing some more combos in this deck involving Laboratory Maniac, and they are amazing. It's how I won my game earlier. 4-drop slot is it's a lot of utility at this slot. We have Gonti, so I can play other people's decks. We've got Hostage Taker to control the board. Venser is another control card. Dread Presence is kind of its versatility, its card draw, its removal. And Solemn Simulacrum, everybody knows what this does. This is just ramp and card draw and all in one body.
He's just a sad robot.
5-drop slots where some of our big hitters starting to come into play. Cavalier of Thorns and Cavalier of Gales are elementals, so they play along with Risen Reef. Shriekmaw is an elemental. Moldrifter is an elemental. And then we have some of our Landfall. Landfall is a trigger, so it triggers off of Yarok. So we have, of course, Obnixilis. Acidic Slime is just solid. It just does whatever you need it to do. It's a great blocker. It blows up problem permanents. Phyrexian Delver, in case something hits the graveyard that you don't want to hit the graveyard, you can get it back. It's very solid. And at 6-drop, we have our win conditions, pretty much. Royal Elemental, I get to steal all your permanents, and it's an elemental. Rampaging Baloths, I get a bunch of stupid green things out and attacking. Deadeye Navigator combos with Prime Speaker Zagana and Laboratory Maniac to basically win the game. And just basically you just have your whole deck in your hand. That's how I won earlier. Sire of Stagnation is a way to mill out people and exile their cards so they can't have access to them. Ateemsis is something that I tried out, but I haven't really been able to cast the card yet, so I'm not sure how good that is. But we have Woodland Bellower here to basically gets 3 drops out of our deck, which, you know, just pick whichever ones are the best suited for the situation and go from there. At 7, we have our big hitters. Agent of Treachery is one of the most amazing cards printed from the new set. It is borderline busted. You can basically steal other people's commanders, and they can't get them back unless they kill them themselves.
God, that is so dumb.
Avengers Zendikar actually has 2 triggers on this card. So you can get double triggers off making the 0-1s, and you get double triggers off of putting 1/1s counters on the creatures. Runescarred Demon is basically go fetch my combo pieces and win the game. Meteor Golem, I can just suit that guy up with a blade of cells and just blow up the entire boards.
Yeah.
Sepulchral Primordial, after I've blown up their boards, I can kill all their good creatures back. So it's very sweet. Woodfall Primus is another one. Just blow up permanents. It's got Persist. That's more double triggers, so that's 4 permanents it can blow up. And Voracious Hydra, you can actually choose both of these triggers when it comes into play. You can double the 1/1 counters and then fight something. You can double the counters and then double them again, or you can fight 2 creatures. It's fun. Lots of versatility there.
Perfect.
So much value in the creatures, man. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, going over the artifacts. We have your basics, your Soul Ring. We have your Lightning Greaves. Blade of Selves makes this deck extremely unique in that the more people that are playing against you, the more value you can get out of your own cards. And this makes this infinitely useful in pretty much every aspect of what this deck wants to do. Chromatic Lantern is just another ramp card. It makes your mana smoother. It is a three color deck, so you need some kind of fixing, and that's what that does. Panharmonicon, of course. I mean, we've got the creature, we might as well have the artifact. And Birthing Pod is just absolutely disgusting on bringing exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. And then we have Conjurer's Closet to close out the artifacts, which is basically another blink effect, so that we get like 4 and 8 times the value out of some of these cards. It's really obnoxious, and it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the point of this deck is to just kind of be obnoxious with ETBs.
Exactly. Alright, so next we have our sorceries. There's not a lot in here because of the last one, but basically all of them mana ramp. So we have Farseek, Cultivate, which everybody knows what Cultivate does.
You cultivate stuff.
I do. Explosive Vegetation. It's basically Cultivate +1.
Blowing up plants.
And then the last sorcery is why we only play 4. It basically every other card in the deck can be put into play after casting Primal Surge. Alright, next are our enchantments. Burgeoning is a very solid enchantment. Keep in mind that Yarok says when a permanent comes into play that triggers one of your permanents, which means whenever an opponent plays a land, if you have Yarok out, you can put down 2 lands for Burgeoning, which will come into play with the rest of the deck.
As if Burgeoning wasn't obnoxious enough.
I know, right? Then we go to Evolutionary Leap. This card has just been fairly solid. The deck makes a lot of tokens. It makes tokens from Rampaging Baloth. It makes tokens from Field of the Dead. So it's got some ability to make lots and lots of tokens, and you can sacrifice them before they go away to get actual creatures in your hand, which is very good. Guardian Project is just another card draw engine. Not a whole lot to say about that.
Basically the enchantment version of
Soul of the Harvest.
Soul of the Harvest.
Yes. It's just very good. And then we have Zendikar Resurgent, which is, again, mana ramp and card draw, all in one nice little pretty package. Alright, so we have, for basic lands, we have 5 forests, we have 4 islands, we have 2 swamps. Our fetch lands, we have our Windswept Heath, Verdant Catacombs, Polluted Delta, Terramorphic Expanse, and Evolving Wilds. Some of those can obviously be changed for Misty Rainforest and some other things like that. I just didn't have them on me at the moment. So we have a couple of green-blue lands, the New Horizon Waterlogged Grove, which is card draw, a utility land. Then we have our black-green lands, which we have Nurturing Peatland, which is another Horizon land, Bayou, Tomb, and Cemetery, which are just duals, solid duals. The same thing for Morphic Pool, Drowned Catacomb, Sunken Hollow, just solid dual lands. Fetid pools can be used in a pinch to draw a card. So Opulent Palace, Command Tower, Urborg, and Bajuka Bog are just solid lands to help you fix your mana and for your deck to run a little bit smoother. And then we have our utility lands. So a lot of these come into play with combos. Strip Mine Wasteland come into play with the Gitrog card draw combo with Muldrotha and Azusa. So basically you can wipe your opponent's land base off the face of the map.
Because that's the best way to win.
That's the best way to win. When they have 0 permanents on the board and you have all the cards in your hand.
That's the type of win where everyone walks away from the game feeling like, man, this guy's he's just great.
Yeah, I probably have a couple hits out on me. Field of the Dead, like I said earlier, this deck makes a lot of tokens. I started out with 4 mana on 1 turn, and I made 16 tokens in a turn with 4 mana off of Field of the Dead. Under a static orb and a back to basics. So that card is extremely good.
You could say it serves its purpose.
It serves its purpose. Exotic Orchard is just some solid fixing. Temple of the False God is kind of pseudo ramp. And Reliquary Tower, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards with this deck. A lot of cards. So having a way to keep them all is the best thing you can be doing at the moment.
Yeah, how big was your hand earlier?
I had all the cards in there. At minimum, I had 70 cards in my hand at the end of the game, winning with Lab Maniac. When I could have drawn another, I believe, 45 cards I could have drawn.
If they were there.
If they were there. I could have drawn another 45 cards, yes.
Gross. So this is combo 1 of a lot of combos.
Lots, yes. So basically, we have Azusa and Wayward Swordtooth that allows you to put more lands into play than the 1 a turn that you normally get. Raminep Excavator lets you play them from your graveyard. And then, of course, we have the lands that get rid of other lands. So Wasteland, Strip Mine, and Gitrog is just there as a combo piece that allows you to draw more cards. As you're wiping your opponent's board away, you're drawing cards, which this deck does very well.
Yeah, the whole purpose of Wasteland and Strip Mine is because fuck your lands.
Exactly. And we have some additional pieces over here that can be just thrown in just for extra value because you never can have too much value. With an Urborg in play, Each land that you play is a swamp, so it will trigger Dread Presence. Dread Presence is a nice utility card. It kills creatures. It draws you cards. Titania, every time a land goes from the play into the graveyard, you get a 5/3 token, which is not a joke. 5/3s will kill you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, this is combo number 2. This is my main win condition. This is what I like. This is how I like to win, because I basically kill everybody at the same time. Lab Maniac, if you would draw a card while your library is empty, you win the game, which is sweet, because Prime Speaker Zagana likes to draw lots and lots of cards. Typically, I don't play Zagana until I have one of my 6/6s out, which I have several: Woodfall Primus, Sepulchre Primordial, Woodland Bellower, Muldrotha, something out there with a lot of power, so I can draw a lot of cards. Then all you have to do is hook up Blade of Selves, and the more people you're playing against, the more things you get to draw. So we were playing a 4-person game earlier. I could have hooked up Blade of Selves to Prime Speaker Zagana, attacked, and drew an extra, drew cards from 2 extra enter the battlefield triggers. So her 1/1 counter is not a trigger. It's a when she enters the battlefield, so it doesn't trigger off of Yarok. But her card draw is a trigger. So the creature would come into play as Blade of Selves. They would immediately go away, but they would trigger as they entered the battlefield. So you get to draw all those sweet, sweet cards, and then just win with Lab Maniac.
And you were drawing, what, 14 per turn?
Yeah. off of every trigger, I was drawing 14.
Or, yeah, per trigger?
Per trigger. And then we have our extra pieces over here, which, of course, Deadeye Navigator, because that card's dumb.
Because, yeah.
Conjurer's Closet basically does the same thing as Deadeye Navigator and Blade of Selves. It just does it at your end step.
Just some good alternate pieces if someone hate fucks Blade of Selves off the battlefield.
Which should be the target number 1.
Yeah.
That's not a lie.
Yeah.
And this is a classic 1-card combo. With all of the inner battlefield effects that this deck has, playing Primal Surge and flipping over 30 permanents is going to win you the game 9 times out of 10. Like I said, there's only 3 other sorceries and 3 other non-permanents in the deck other than Primal Surge. So the chances that you're going to hit a good chunk of your deck onto the battlefield is pretty good. Alright, so like I mentioned earlier, the deck has a small elemental theme going for it. So all of these trigger off Risen Reef, which basically is another mana ramp and card draw in 1 card. It's kind of amazing that most of the cards that work so well with Yarok have so much diversity and so much utility. Each one of these cards does something that is extremely powerful, and it does it twice with Yarok on the table. So we have, like I said, ramp and card draw in Risen Reef. Cavalier is ramp, and then actual card selection from your graveyard when he dies. Cavalier of Gales is card draw, and then more card selection off of the scry when he dies. Shriek Maw is removal. Avenger of Zendikar is just massive amounts of creatures, and they just get bigger the longer the game goes on. Muldrotha basically it's just recursion. You get to play things from your graveyard, 1 of each permanent type each turn.
Makes this deck so hard to deal with, because it's like, hey guys, I destroyed the thing, and it's like, oh well, Muldrotha's out, fuck me.
Yeah, pretty much. Royal Elemental, it just, any defense your opponent could put up, you just take it away with Royal Elemental. Like, you can steal their commander. Like, it's like, oh, this cool value thing you're doing, yeah, I would like that value, give me that card. That's what Royal Elemental does. Soul of the Harvest, it's just obscene how many cards you can draw off of this. So basically it triggers whenever a creature enters the battlefield that's not a token. So if Yarok is out, you're drawing 2 cards for every creature that hits the table, which it's obscene. Especially if it's something like Prime Speaker Zagana, for instance. He's a 6/6. So you're drawing 7 cards off the first trigger, and then 7 cards off the second trigger.
Death by draw.
And then you've got Mole Drifter, which is just, I mean, it's one of the best creatures in the deck because it draws you so many cards. And to even have this out with the Blade of Cells, you want to just go ahead and attack your opponent with Blade of Cells. You're just going to draw all the cards in your deck. It's amazing. Alright, this is a small package of cards that steal your opponent's permanents. The deck is just amazing. With Yarok on the table, each one of these cards is almost oppressive in how powerful it is. So we have Royal Elemental, which, like I said, landfall triggers. With Azusa and Wayward Swordtooth out, you're getting multiple triggers off of this, and it triggers each time twice with Yarok on the table. You have Hostage Taker, which basically steals all your opponent's creatures off the table. I attacked with a Blade of Cells attached to Hostage Taker earlier and basically wiped my opponent's boards. 3 people. Every creature gone. Gonti is another one. Basically, you attack with him with a Blade of Cells, and you get to look at 12 cards off of one guy's library. You can pick and choose, whose library you get to pick cards off of. It's just a very solid card. Agent of Treachery just flat out steals things, and they don't get them back. Royal Elemental and Hostage Taker, if you haven't cast the card with Hostage Taker and it dies, then they get their card back. Royal Elemental the same way. If it dies, they get their cards back. If Agent of Treachery dies, you basically just res it from the freaking graveyard and you steal your opponent's things again. They do not get their cards back. Sepulchre Primordial is very similar to Agent of Treachery, as it steals their cards permanently. And it's from the graveyard. So after you kill them, you can steal them. And of course, we have Deadeye Navigator as an extra little piece there, because it works with everything. And it's dumb.
It's so versatile. Playing against this deck, it was really cool to see, but to watch it be broken down, that's like some of that stuff while we were shooting all that, I was like, oh. And yeah, like you said, man, there's just so much value.
Yeah, basically when I was putting this deck together, I went through and found as many enter the battlefield effects on big stupid creatures that I could. And then I played around with a little bit, and I kind of took some cards in, or put some cards in, took some cards out, and this is what it is right now. It's obviously, there's some things I want to add to it that you said would make it unfun. Yeah. But yeah, there's some. I mean, you can play Yarok any style you want to. You can play it as a straight up control deck. Yeah, there's enough good blue and black creatures that can control your opponent out of the game. Mm-hmm. You can play it as a mid-range deck like I did. You can play it as an aggro deck. Like, there's enough token creators in those colors that can make this kind of just a swarm deck. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things that this deck can do, and it's just whatever play style you like to play, that's what this guy can be.
You go elemental tribal.
Elemental tribal. that's where the good stuff is.
That's how you win.
That's how you win.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed in the breakdown and also playing against it was, like, the win cons that you have, they're not feel bad win cons. Like, these are when you watch someone pull off these types of wins, it's like, damn, that was cool. Yeah. Like, it's not like the win con of most CEDH decks where it's like, and okay, I win. It was, when you won that game earlier, it was like there was just so many things going on that took you to the win.
Yeah, that's the kind of decks I used to play when I played Standard and Modern. Incremental advantage. And when Yarok basically multiplies your incremental advantage, it gets out of hand very quickly. Yeah. But not so quickly that your opponents they don't have a chance to respond to it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, I could possibly build a deck that could go off on turn 3 and just, lock everybody out of the game. I don't like playing that way personally. I like playing big, stupid green things. and doing big stupid green stuff.
Yeah.
So that's how I like to win. That's what I like to play. So that's what I built.
Well, one thing that was interesting that I noticed playing against it was it got to the point so quickly where it was like, well, I could deal with that, or shit, should I deal with that? Does it even matter? Like, I can get rid of that, but he's gonna bring it back. I could get rid of that, but he's just gonna get draw off of it. And it was like, it got to the point where there were really no negative elements of your board state. But yeah, so that's gonna wrap it up. Are you guys proud of me? We went from 55-minute videos to being able to cover everything that was of importance within 20-ish minutes. We're also, dude, today was the mark, got 50 subscribers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So that's a huge landmark in my minuscule, what was it, Pub Stomper channel. But yeah, so that'll do us for this week. As always, I'm Dakota.
I'm Rob.
And this is Pumped Up Gaming. We will see you guys in the next one.